Hey guys, Marsling in here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so we are very close now to the start of the next World Tournament for Global. I always do one of these videos just before the tournament starts, talking about the various rewards and awakenings, talking about whether that particular reward for that tournament is worth the grind. But this time we have quite a lot to talk about, and as you can see from the title of the video, this is probably going to be the best World Tournament that we have ever had on Global so far, just because of the sheer amount of rewards that are available, the amount of new awakenings, and just how good they actually are. And there's also some bonus rewards for this one as well, because we are getting the new the local pool LR reward, which is the Mercenary Tau. So finally the LR Demon King Piccolo is being replaced as the World Tournament LR. Now, I think it's because this is coming slightly earlier than it did on JP. So to make up for the fact that in total Global will have had less World Tournaments with Demon King Piccolo as the prize, they've actually added in extra missions. So obviously we have these random missions that we get every time, but now if you get 10 wins you get a copy of Demon King Piccolo, and if you get 50 wins you get a copy of him as well. So for a lot of people, if you're not somebody who grinds the World Tournament very much, or even, you know, barely plays it at all over the weekend, it's very possible that you haven't really picked up many copies of Demon King Piccolo since he was added as the prize, because I think you have to finish top 150 in the local to get one copy, and then obviously if you finish number 1 you get 2. So getting 10 wins is obviously quite straightforward, because one of the most annoying things about the World Tournament is that every time it comes out, the difficulty multiplier thing is reset and you have to start and work your way up to the times 30 difficulty every time. But what that means is that the first few runs through are really easy because they're on the super low difficulty. So even if you don't get a lot of chance to play it over the weekend, it's not going to take you very long at all to get 10 wins, and then that secures you an extra copy of the Demon King Piccolo. So obviously that's going to be useful. If you're somebody who's played the World Tournament fairly frequently, I can't remember off the top of my head how many times it's been, but even if you've only got one copy every time, you should have been able to have the 5 copies that you need to get him fully rainbowed at this point. So obviously that is a good start. We'll talk about Tau a little bit in a minute, but we'll go over all the units here and see exactly what we have going on. So the first thing is the actual reward card for this tournament, which is a Super Saiyan Youth Gohan. And he is incredibly good. So the thing that is really great about this guy, and hopefully, you know, what we want to see from World Tournament cards to come, is when new World Tournament cards come out, it's normally quite a long time for them to get an awakening. And so what they seem to be doing, which they really should if they're going to wait that long to awaken them, is that the actual UR versions of these cards are actually really good. Because there's no point them releasing a card that is basically pre-mid without an awakening, and then they're not going to awaken them for you know, a year or two, because then you're just not going to use them. So this guy comes out and straight away is very good. So his leader skills, nothing really to talk about. Tech 3 key 50%, you're not going to be using him as a leader, but he infinitely stacks defense on super attack and does supreme damage, so obviously useful for longer form events. And then his stats, he gets attack and defense 158%, which is pretty good. Now bear in mind, obviously he's a free-to-play unit, so even rainbowed he has just under 7,000 defense. So big numbers in his passive obviously helps out quite a lot. But then he also has reduces damage received by 30% when facing only one enemy. So in any of those long form events where raising defense obviously is going to be why you put him on the team, he also has damage reduction. Because one thing it's easy to notice with free-to-play infinite stackers is because of their stats, it takes them a lot longer to get to those really crazy high defense levels. Whereas this guy, not only is he starting off with a really high base defense anyway thanks to his stats, but he's also got 30% damage reduction. So, and then he also gets an additional attack and defense 58% when there is another Goku family ally on the team. Not even on the rotation, on the team, which is the best way, really, of them doing these specific character, bonus abilities. So this guy's going to be great, because if you think about the teams that he's on, like Hybrid Saiyans, Goku family, Super Saiyan, almost all of these teams, you're undoubtedly going to be running another Goku family unit. So he's always going to be getting that additional attack and defense 58%. So he's actually going to be really, really good. Now, obviously, if you're somebody who doesn't get a huge amount of time to grind and you're not going to finish, like, where do you actually get the multiple copies of him? So as the reward card, you need to finish in the top 20,000 to get any extra copies of him. But obviously, for those of you who just want to do the actual missions, started quite a few world tournaments ago now, but as long as you get to 23 million points overall, you do get a guaranteed copy of him, and you get that straight away without having to wait for the rewards to be given out after the tournament is over. So it is quite possible to get 23 million points over the weekend, even if you're not playing it that much. Now, it obviously varies depending what team you're doing and how quickly you are going through each run. It will take you a few hours, but obviously that's spread across the whole weekend. So if you can spare that time, like getting the one guaranteed copy of him, I think is definitely worth it, because he is really, really good. He does have a farmable super attack as well, so you really only need the one copy, and then you can have him at 55% and maxed SA, and he's going to be very good. Like, I will be link leveling this guy, and I'm very much looking forward to using him on teams, because a lot of the time it's not a great idea to link level units before they awaken, but if they're not going to get their awakening for like 2 years, then you might as well, because this guy's definitely going to be worth using on teams. So he's really, really good. Then obviously we get a whole bunch of awakenings. There's these two are like the big ones that we've been waiting for. They're going to be really good on all their teams. So the perfect cell, he greatly raises attack and defense for 1 turn. In fact, I think both the cards are very similar, because they were when they first came out as well. They're kind of like the extreme and super counterparts to each other. So greatly raise attack and defense for 1 turn, does supreme damage. Attack and defense 120%. Extreme class allies key 2, attack and defense 30%. Super class enemies defense minus 60%, and then a high chance of launching an additional super when facing 2 or more enemies. So obviously this is going to be a big help to a lot of people that are still struggling with extreme tech, extreme super battle road, because it probably is the hardest out of all the mono stages still. So obviously when there's 2 or more enemies, he gets a chance to do an additional super attack, and he greatly raises his defense on super. So not only is he providing that support utility to the team, but if he does get a double super, then obviously his defense is going to be pretty solid. And if you have him with dupes at this point, if he triple supers, then his defense is going to be very, very high. And then, of course, the Gohan is very similar. Greatly raises attack and defense for 1 turn on super. Then he gets attack and defense 70%, so not quite as high as the Cell. But then he gets an additional attack and defense 10% with each attack performed up to 58%. So he ends up being basically around the same, slightly higher, in fact. And then super class allies key 3, attack and defense 30%. Then he gets an additional key 3 and attack and defense 58% when there is an extreme class enemy. So like, if you're using this guy on a super centric team, because obviously he's a super support unit, like, you're pretty much going to be fighting against an extreme enemy a lot of the time, depending on which event you're going against. So he's already getting that extra buff. The extra key means he's pretty much going to auto super, because remember, he's getting his own support passive as well. So against an extreme enemy, he's getting 6 key. And then he has extreme class enemies defense minus 58%. He is a Super Saiyan 2, so obviously he's got like all the quality Super Saiyan links, prepared for battle. He does have Hero of Justice, but I mean, it's useful on some of the teams that he's on, like Defenders of Justice. He's on the Super Saiyan 2 team, which I'm looking forward to, because you guys know I love that team. The only downside, of course, is he only supports super class allies, so he doesn't support Martian Vegeta, but he's very, very good. And then, yeah, these guys having greatly raising defense on their super is incredibly good. So then we have an awakening for the physical Mighty Mask. This one is really weird, because the first thing I'm going to point out, we talked about this on the most recent podcast episode, but he's only on World Tournament and Majin Buu Saga. So World Tournament is basically a dead team that never gets used, and then Majin Buu Saga has so much competition because it has some of the best units, well, some of the better units in the game, that I just don't see where you're ever going to use this guy. Like, it's really weird the fact that we all know that this is just Goten and Trunks in disguise. And they have the Super Saiyan link, but they're not on Hybrid Saiyans, which is kind of weird. But yeah, they got big stats, attack and defense 150, then they get an additional 150 when facing only one enemy. So that sounds really good, because, you know, 300%, but like I was saying before, with these free-to-play units, I mean, their defense is only 8,000. That's not that much higher than that Gohan, and this is these guys' actual TUR awakening. But they do have a bunch of built-in dodge. They also have like a guaranteed dodge for 1 turn when they drop below certain HP restrictions. So their card design is interesting and not necessarily bad when you think about like the passive and the super attack, because they also greatly raise attack and defense. But they're just like, you're just never going to use them. Like, and maybe one day if World Tournament gets a proper leader and actually gets some buffs, like maybe if they finally give us a Teen Goku and Ma Jr., like double Dokkan Fest for Dragon Ball Saga or something like that, then maybe World Tournament will get some buffs. But other than that, I don't really see where you're going to use this guy. But his card is interesting, so obviously we will do a video like showing him off and seeing what we can do with him. But then next up we have the Awakening for the Jackie Chun, the max power from the Dragon Ball Saga banner. He's really good. He becomes a Kamehameha support unit for 3 ki and 30% attack. He also gets quite a decent amount of stats. Once you've built up 4 turns, he has an extra 80% attack and defense on top of the 150 that he gets when performing a super. So he's not a great slot 1 unit, but he's on a lot of good teams. He does share some good links with the physical Roshi, and obviously they're both physical, so they share some categories like Earthlings, and they are both super physical. Kamehameha, of course, so like they work well together on the teams that they're on, so he's pretty solid. The only problem, of course, Dragon Ball Saga, that banner sucks. Even when they update it with new units, the one thing that always annoys me about that banner is you can only do single summons on it, regardless of how many tickets you have, which is just a pain. I wish you could do multis with all the tickets, just so you could go through the summons a little bit faster, and the rates on that banner have always been not the best, to say the least. But this guy's pretty decent. And then of course we have the Tao, who is the new reward LR. He is very interesting because his card design, he's very strong. He's got decent stats for a free-to-play LR. He raises attack and defense on both of his super attacks. He also has the Anniversary LR's like ability where he has a high chance to perform a crit as part of his super attack effect. So I believe this works in the same way as the Anniversary LRs, where if he gets an additional super attack, that affects stacks, which means the additional super has a 100% chance to crit, which is pretty good. And then his passive, unfortunately, because he's one of these free-to-play like World Tournament LRs, his passive is full of flat numbers rather than percentage boosts, which means that he doesn't age particularly well over time. But the numbers are a decent size, even though they're very weird. Like, we have all seen, like, a lot of Gokus have like 59%, Gohans have 58% because they have specific, you know, numbers that are relative to that character. This guy has some very weird numbers that I don't really understand. Attack and defense 5,648 per key sphere obtained is very weird. And then if you get 3 or more orbs, he's also getting an additional 7,564. And then when you're performing a super attack, he gets attack and defense 10,108. So all of these numbers are very odd, but when you combine them together, if he gets a lot of orbs, he's going to be doing a pretty solid amount of damage. He also gets an even bigger buff when you're doing the 18 key super, and then he gets an extra key per key sphere obtained. So he actually has a few of the abilities that we would consider to be really good from some of the top tier LRs, like the crit chance on super, extra key per key sphere, which is always good for an LR. But yeah, very strange design, but he's definitely going to be fun to use. He also has an active skill. When HP is 50% or less after you've received 3 or more attacks, then he does an actual damage active skill. Massively raises attack temporarily, does ultimate damage, and stuns the enemy for 1 turn. So if the enemy can be stunned, it's a guaranteed stun. The only downside from his design, just looking at him on paper, is his links kind of suck. Like Crane School, Coward, Dodon Ray, like these are all awful links that not many people have. He does have Brutal Beatdown, Shattering the Limit, Legendary Power. Those are probably going to be the 3 links that you see active more often than not. And then his teams are a bit weird as well, to be fair, because obviously he's on Dragon Ball Saga, but he's missing some of the classic Dragon Ball Saga links. He's on Dragon Ball Seekers, he's on Siblings Bond, Target Goku, Earthlings, Sworn Enemies. So Target Goku and Sworn Enemies, you could definitely get some decent rotations with him with those Brutal Beatdown, Shattering the Limit, Legendary Power. So he definitely could be interesting. But as I was saying at the beginning, as the World Tournament Reward LR, you need to finish in the top, was it is it 1,500 in the local, or 150, sorry, top 150 to get a copy of him, or number 1 to get 2 copies. So depending on how much you play will depend on whether you actually get any copies of him or not. But there you go. There's a couple of extra units coming to the Dragon Ball Saga banner as well. There's a Anin card and a new base Goku, but neither of them are particularly crazy. We can talk about them more once they've actually come out. I'll probably do some videos on them. But as you can see here, just from this screen, summarizing everything that we're getting with this World Tournament, a brand new reward card that is super good, a new LR that's really good, a couple of awakenings that are really, really good, and then some other ones that are kind of middle of the road, but can be good maybe in the future with some upgrades to their team. So overall, this is probably going to be the best World Tournament that we've had on Global so far, until, you know, eventually one day, fingers crossed, we get that revamp for this mode. So let me know what you guys think down below. Are you going to be going in on this World Tournament? I definitely want to try and get at least a couple of extra copies of that Gohan, because he is very, very good. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Master Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.